What is going on, world? I am the Hungarian Experiment, and if you've been following along my journey, then you probably heard me discuss and mention many times that I believe life is situational. Now, in terms of defining life as situational, that is a very broad thing to say. You could draw some wild and odd conclusions from hearing this term out of context. Typically, I will say that life is situational when describing how certain factors affect me in my life compared to someone else differently. Take, for instance, how intermittent fasting affects women compared to men, or even a child compared to a senior, or even someone who works at a desk job for 8 hours a day compared to someone who does construction. Life is situational, and I believe that over the course of our lives, how we optimally take advantage of these differing life factors for the maximum benefit, it changes. But today, I want to discuss something a little different than that. Today, I want to discuss how to live a situational lifestyle, or how I believe you can structure your lifestyle in a situational way that is similar to our ancient ancestors, so you can get the maximum benefits not just for muscle growth, fat loss, and hormonal production, but also to be in control of your life and in control of your lifestyle so you can increase your productivity. We have to face it. Living in this modern society, we have to take negatives into our life in order to make money and be productive. We need to learn how to balance these negatives in our lives while optimizing the positive life factors as much as we possibly can to get the maximum benefit. And this is situational. It's unique to you and your life situation. So in this video, I'm going to discuss and describe several different scenarios on how to structure your food and how to structure your caloric intake situationally so you can get the most out of every single day. First, we will cover two different lifestyle situations, and I will go into depth on why I don't believe they really take full advantage of a situational lifestyle. The typical bro and the typical white girl. And then from there, we will cover three different situational lifestyle situations and how I've experimented around with them and tested them out on my own body to try to get the maximum benefit out of living a situational lifestyle. Just for any of those wondering out there, I am not a professional. I didn't go to school for nutrition or to become a personal trainer or anything like that. Everything I've done has been self-taught through rigorous experimentation on my own body. I don't discuss things unless I've tried them myself, unless I know how it actually feels in my own body. This is just a guide. Don't take my words 100%. Hell, don't take anyone's words for 100%. Life is situational, so please understand that when you're watching these graphs that are about to come up here, that if you want to experiment around and try a situational lifestyle for yourself, that you may have to tweak and manipulate things to make them work best for you. You may have to lower calories, you may have to raise calories, depending on you, your unique lifestyle, your physical activity, the foods you eat, and all that. This is just a guide. I'm not going to give you a blueprint on how to build a house. What I'm about to do in this video is I'm about to show you 5 different blueprints for different houses. And through this video, as well as all my other videos here on YouTube, I am giving you the tools to build the house for yourself. So let's just dive right into it.
Alright, so first here we're going to start off with the typical bro. Now if you guys have been following along my journey, one of my more popular videos is why intermittent fasting is the best method for fat loss. In that video, I break down the typical bro and the typical white girl and how they eat on a day-to-day basis. So if you guys are interested, I really suggest checking out that video because I go into a lot more detail about how different the typical bro and the typical white girl's lifestyle and eating habits is different from an intermittent faster's lifestyle and their eating habits. So I really suggest either after this video or even just pausing this video right now and going to check out that video because it is packed full of information, and it's a great video about intermittent fasting and how to structure your life on a day-to-day basis. But this video is, as I mentioned there, how to live a situational lifestyle. So a lifestyle is more than just your typical day. So here we're going to cover your whole week. So the typical bro, and I used to live like the typical bro. I used to follow these 6 to 8 small meal eating programs where you're basically eating 6 to 8 small meals a day and you're trying to time your eating with your carbs. So if you are trying to cut fat, that in between your meals you're possibly having this carb depletion in your body, and you're timing that with physical exercise and lots of cardio to try to get fat loss. The same thing with the typical bro is that they will do this typical lifestyle, what I'm showing you here, one that they believe is helping them to cut fat, but they have to do these kind of programs where they're eating in a caloric surplus for 8 to 9 months out of the year, and then for 1 to 2 months they go on a shred and they try to cut off all that fat that they gained. Now I'm going to explain and show you guys why I think they are putting on fat and why it's harder for them to cut fat with this type of structure and lifestyle, because if they are following this typical program, the 6 to 8 small meals, as you see here, every single day they're trying to put themselves in a slight caloric surplus. They're getting around 3,000 calories a day, and they're trying to do that because they believe that is what's going to help them put on muscle. So for the first 5 days there, as you see, they have a typical structured lifestyle. They're eating these 6 to 8 small meals. They're getting in around 3,000 or even 3,000 plus calories every single day. Then on the weekends, when they want to go out and have fun, so this could be your Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, or however the typical bro structures it. But basically, on those weekend days, on their days where they want to enjoy themselves, they're probably going even more into a caloric surplus, because on top of their strict 6 to 8 small meals and the foods that they're eating, that they're possibly drinking on these days. So they're getting an excess of 1,000 plus more calories with all the alcohol they're drinking and then all the food that they're buying after the bars there. So that's just basically real quick how I see and how I'm going to compare the typical bro to a situational lifestyle. Basically, they're eating in a caloric surplus for 8 to 9 months out of the year. They're taking 2 months to shred off all that fat, and in that meantime, they're in a caloric surplus, which I believe is not as healthy for overall life longevity and hormonal production. And then from the typical bro, we move on to the typical white girl, which is almost completely opposite. So the way I am generalizing the typical white girl's lifestyle is that they are trying to eat in a caloric deficit every single day. They're trying to put themselves into a caloric deficit so that they are cutting fat every single day, that they are staying lean and staying cut every single day. But yet, as the typical bro, on their weekends, they're still doing this, and yet they're drinking or they're eating in excess, which is pushing them over the limit. So it's not a very situational lifestyle. It's very structured, and it's not structured around their goals. It's not structured around trying to lose the ultimate fat loss possible. It's more structured around having fun on the weekends, having a good time on the weekends, and letting loose. Again, if this is your goals, if this is what you want, you just want to have a life where you're cutting fat on a day-to-day basis and you want to have fun on your weekends, this is not a bad lifestyle to have. Is it optimizing your hormones? Is it optimizing your productivity? Is it giving you the most opportunity to get the most out of your life and the life situation? I don't believe so. I don't believe structuring your life around the fun times is the best way to get the most out of productivity. So again, they're comparing the typical bro to the typical white girl. It's basically opposite from each other. They enjoy their weekends. They go in excess because they are structuring their 9 to 5, their 5-day schedule very the same. As well as you see there with the typical bro, because he's in a caloric surplus every day, throughout his whole week, he's having 23,000 calories on average, which is very excessive. And if this is going to be something long-term that you're doing for years and years and years to try to get the maximum amount of muscle you can, this could be detrimental to your overall life longevity and your overall hormonal production, which I believe affects the amount of muscle you can grow. And as you see there for the typical white girl, her total calories are around 11,000 to 13,000. Depending on your lifestyle and the type of physical things that you're putting into your life and how you're outputting your body, this might not be a lot of calories. This may not be enough calories during those 5 days to be optimizing your life, to be optimizing your hormones. If you are eating in such a low caloric deficit every single day, your hormones, your body is just trying to keep you alive. And then those 2 days where you spike it and you have alcohol, you're even affecting your hormones even more. So you may be getting the fat loss results that you were looking for as the typical white girl, but overall, Is this the best thing for your hormonal output? Is this the best thing for your life longevity? So now that I showed you guys and displayed the typical bro and the typical white girl and how I believe they structure their lives, I'm going to show you guys 3 different scenarios, 3 different situational lifestyle scenarios, and how you can take advantage of your calories and your day-to-day life to get the maximum benefits. As you're going to see here, my caloric range on all these 3 different situations here are all the same. And they're all between the typical bro and the typical white girl's caloric intake. I don't believe in a week that I go over about 18,000 calories. No matter how I'm structuring my lifestyle, whether it's the caloric deficit, whether it's the caloric surplus, or whether it's the very sporadic lifestyle, I am keeping my weekly caloric range in a slight caloric surplus. So throughout my days where I'm getting slight caloric deficit in, I'm taking advantage of something that I'm going to discuss later in the video, and how it's to increase your life by reducing your overall caloric intake by about 30%. So the situational lifestyle number 1 here, this is basically how I structured my first year on YouTube. Over my first year on YouTube, I wanted to show and display how with intermittent fasting, that I could be in a caloric deficit for 70 to 80% of the year, and yet I could still put on noticeable muscle mass. Throughout my research, everything that I found out there was saying you need to be in a caloric surplus to put on muscle. And I believe that's true, but I also believe that you can situationally structure your week. You can structure your life into 5 to 7 day blocks, where throughout these 5 to 7 days, throughout most of those days, you're in a caloric deficit. But with the way you are structuring it, you are ensuring that you are getting that slight caloric surplus, which I believe is helping me put on muscle, is helping me to keep my fat levels low. And with these caloric deficit days, I'm getting the most out of this life longevity, disease prevention, and hormonal production. So as you see here with the situational lifestyle number 1, for 5 days out of the week, I'm in a slight caloric deficit. So compared to the typical bro who's in a caloric surplus, and compared to the typical white girl who is in a significant caloric deficit, I am just reducing my calories by 1 to 300 calories every single day from my maintenance calories. Again, this has a host of benefits, hormonal benefits, life longevity benefits. But overall, and through this video, I'm trying to show how it is helping to structure your lifestyle so that you can take advantage of your days. So, as you see there, day 4, typically in 2015, I had an excessive cheat day. Because I was putting myself into a caloric surplus for 4 to 5 days out of the week, I wanted to ensure that I was spiking and replenishing my body with all the glycogen. And this was also the day where I took advantage of getting all the cravings out of the way. So throughout my caloric deficit, I would try to make sure that those were my hormone optimizing days, that I was eating as clean as I possibly could. I was eating whole, healthy, nutritious foods. And then on this cheat day, I would just eat anything and everything I wanted, everything that I was craving over that week. Then as you see there, the day after the cheat day, I would have a significant caloric deficit. So this is very similar to the typical white girl. But instead of doing it for 5 days straight, I'm only doing it the day after the cheat day. So I am taking advantage of the fact that I basically ate 2 days worth of food in 1 day. So I can reduce my calories post-cheat day. And this is what I mean about living a situational lifestyle. Now, when I lived this lifestyle, I felt amazing. I felt awesome. Being in a caloric deficit every day, I felt like I was waking up and I was full of energy, which seems very weird. Usually, and when you think about it, if you're getting less energy, you're putting less food into your body, that you would be tired and you would be more lethargic. But to be honest, I found that completely opposite. And as you're going to see here from the situational lifestyle number 2 and how I've been structuring my lifestyle ever since my 1-year transformation photos in July there, that I've been in a slight caloric surplus every day. I've been reducing my overall cheat days so they're not as excessive. But to be honest, day to day, being in a slight caloric surplus, I believe it's helping me put on muscle. I can see the muscle growth in the mirror, and I feel it's a lot more significant than over 2015. But to be honest, day to day, I just don't feel as good. I don't feel as lively. I don't wake up with the same energy levels that I did when I was in a slight caloric deficit. And as I said here, and I'll mention at the end of this video with another video, that being in a slight caloric deficit, reducing any kind of living organism, whether it's yeast, bacteria, animals, rodents, insects, if you reduce their overall caloric intake by 30%, you are increasing their life longevity by 30%. And this has been done and tested through many scientific studies. So as you see there, comparing situational lifestyle number 2 to number 1, my total calories for the week are basically the same. There's no real change in my slight caloric surplus throughout my 7-day block, but how I structure my typical day-to-day lifestyle is quite different. So as you're seeing there, instead of getting 22 to 2300 calories in every day, I'm getting 26 to 2700 calories in every day. That means I now reduce my overall cheat day from over 5,000 plus calories to around 3,500 calories. I believe for myself, after extensive testing and watching my body weight on the scale for about 2 to 3 months and extensively documenting my caloric intake, that right around 24 to 2,500 calories is my maintenance. Now this changes, of course, as I gain more muscle. So I believe it used to be around 23 to 2,400, and it's slowly going up over time. So right now I believe my maintenance calories are right around 24 to 2,500. So if I'm shooting for 26 to 2,700 calories every day, that means I'm going to be in a caloric surplus. So when I step on the scale the next day, and I then watch myself on the scale for several weeks, that by day 5 of my caloric surplus, before my cheat day, I should be slightly going up on the scale every single day. Same thing with situational lifestyle number 1. By day 5 of my caloric deficit, I should be losing slight body fat every single day, and that should be showing on the scale. So that way when I go to spike it with a cheat day, and I look throughout the whole month, that my calories, my body weight is averaging out for the month. Same thing here with the situational lifestyle number 2. So by day 5, my body weight on the scale should be about a pound or so higher than the very first day of starting this, or after my fasted day. So as you see here, instead of having a low calorie day after my cheat day, I have a completely fasted day. This allows me to see as well, after my fasted day, after I'm 32 to 36 hours fasted, I can see on the scale if I've put on fat or I put on body weight after that whole week. After a whole week of being in a slight caloric surplus and then having a cheat day and then fasting for 32 to 36 hours, my body weight on the scale should be higher than the previous week. I hope that makes sense to you guys, but if you are being very structured, you are documenting your caloric intake, and you know how much calories you're getting in your body weight should be up after a week. If it's not, you need to increase your calories. Same thing with the caloric deficit. If by day 5 you are not around a pound or so lower, 0.5 of a pound or a whole pound lower than you were from that previous week, then you need to lower your calories slightly, or you need to lower your cheat day. These are all things you need to consider, and this is why life is situational. So moving on from the very structured situational lifestyle 1 and situational lifestyle 2, lately my life has been very, very sporadic. Over the last 2 months here, I've just been going day to day and doing what I need to do. My workouts, my gym time, and my work schedule is all over the place right now, and it's been all over the place for the last 2 months. So there are some days where I just can't get to the gym, or I just, like today, I'm recording and editing all day. I'm probably gonna get 1,500 calories and try to get it up to 2,000 calories before I get to work. But that's all I'm gonna do for today. I'm not going to the gym, I'm not doing any physical activity besides my morning experiments, so I have to manipulate my day. Yesterday, the beautiful one and I went out on the town. We went to go see the Wizard of Oz. We had a great time. We were doing things and getting prepped and ready for Christmas. So yesterday, I was in a slight caloric surplus. The day before, I was in just a typical slight caloric surplus. So the days, the weeks are very sporadic. But because I've lived this lifestyle, because I've done this for several years now, I know and I can structure my life into a way that I am ensuring that I'm hitting this average calories throughout the week. Throughout my 5 to 7 day block, I'm getting around 17,000 calories because of how I'm structuring things. And I know that I can completely change and manipulate these things around. So as you see here, this is just an example of how I've been structuring it. It's not structured at all though. So as you see, day 1, 3,000 calories, because that's what I could get in that day. And I had a higher activity day. The next day was a day like today where I'm just recording, editing, I'm sitting down and not doing much. So I have a 2,000 calorie day. The next day, I feel like I've missed the gym I feel like I haven't been in the gym for 3 or 4 days, so I want to go ham. I want to go as hard as I can in the gym. So I want to do a 2-hour heavy leg day. So I'm going to make that my cheat day and go in a significant caloric surplus. Then the next day, once again, because I recorded my 100 rep squat challenge or I did a heavy leg day and I recorded it all, then I'm going to be editing. But I don't decide this the day before. I wake up and go with the day and take it as the day takes me. The next day, I wanted to edit all day as well, but my mother may have needed my help. So we're out on the town, we're going to the dog park with the dogs, so I have to manipulate my calories and my eating schedule around my physical activity and the things I'm doing for that day. Well, there you have it, world. From these 5 graphs, I believe I've displayed how to structure a life situationally. You can still get the same amount of calories in throughout the week, but you can completely affect and change how your body is affected by that. Whether you are in a caloric deficit for a majority of the week or you're in a caloric surplus, or your life is completely sporadic and you have to go day to day depending on the factors and the situations that are involved. As I explained and showed there, I don't believe the typical bro and the typical white girl's lifestyle is optimal. The typical bro is eating in such a caloric surplus day to day that he has to take 2 to 3 to 4 months out of his year to cut all that fat off if he wants to get shredded and get a beach body, so to say. And completely opposite to that, if the typical white girl wants to grow, she wants to benefit from this world, she wants to make sure that her typical physical activity she's recovering from and growing from that mentally and physically, I don't believe she is taking in enough calories day to day to be fully optimized. That is just my opinion and my belief, but thank you guys so much for watching this. Let's get back into the rest of the video here.
Now, I don't want to make this video too long, and I've discussed this in several other videos, but I believe that living a situational lifestyle along with intermittent fasting is very, very closely related to how our ancient ancestors most likely ate and structured their lifestyles naturally. Our ancient ancestors back, the hunter and gatherers, they didn't have convenience stores. They didn't have refrigerators. They didn't wake up in the morning, have breakfast, have another meal, then come home for a big ass dinner and then probably munched well into the night as well. Most likely what they did is they had 1 to 2 rather bigger meals and they ate with the whole tribe. Everyone ate together and they generously shared with each other. There was no hoarding. There was no, this is mine, this is not yours, I can eat all this and you don't. This meant that in periods of low cultivation and no hunting was getting done, that they were in a significant caloric deficit. Some isolated tribes today, they'll skip whole days of eating, even though that there are rich food sources just a mile or 2 down. They just don't eat if they don't need to.
The Piraha people, an indigenous hunter-gatherer group of the Amazon rainforest, was extensively studied by an anthropological linguist named Daniel Everett. He found they do not eat every day or even attempt to do so. They were even aware of food storage techniques, yet never used them except to barter with Brazilian traders.
So along with this caloric deficit, when the tribe would return from a hunt, they would have all this food, all this meat, and they had to get rid of it. They had to eat it within a couple days because they didn't have ways to preserve it. Again, they didn't have refrigerators and freezers where they could store all this stuff in and preserve it for a week. This would have been like a caloric surplus, almost similar to a cheat day. Periodically, they would be putting their bodies, due to their eating habits and the environment around them, through a caloric surplus, but after a significant caloric deficit. So their food intake would look like a graph almost after about a month or a year if you look at the ranges and the averages. And this is what I've been experimenting around with on my own body and through my life. I believe to get the most out of the hormonal production in my body, as well as trying to increase my life longevity, that I need to be eating in a caloric deficit.
If I take any organism on the planet Earth, from yeast cells to spiders, insects, rabbits, dogs, and I reduce their caloric intake by 30%, they live 30% longer. The only organism which has not yet been deliberately tested by scientists are Homo sapiens.
More detail in a future video, but as I discussed there while I was showing you guys the graphs, that over this last year of eating in a caloric surplus, I just don't feel as great. I don't feel as lively. I feel it's helping me to grow more muscle, and I can definitely see that in the mirror, and I can see that on the scale and through all the effort I'm putting in. But is it beneficial to my overall life longevity? This is where life is even more situational, and you have to structure your life depending on your goals. And is that putting on muscle, or is that trying to live a long and healthy life? These are all things you have to consider, and you'll have to balance it. There's no pre-program for you. If someone's trying to sell you some shit on the internet and it's pre-programmed, the diet, the workout is pre-programmed, don't buy that shit. It has to be structured to you, your unique lifestyle, and what you do to your body and to your mind and to everything. Everything goes into it. Well, there you have it, world. Life is situational depending on what point of your life you are in. You may have to adapt to the factors, but I believe having an understanding of how to structure your lifestyle and how to manipulate it is going to help you attain your fat loss and muscle growth goals in life, along with the other goals that you have that may be of higher importance. Now, before I leave you here today, you have to know, understand, and have experimented around with the basics before you can expect to get the most optimal results from living a situational lifestyle. The only way I know and understand that my sporadic situational lifestyle is still helping me to achieve my goals in life is because I already have a great understanding of caloric density between different foods and portion sizes and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. I extensively experimented around with all of this several years back. For myself, I can just look at a plate of food, and depending what's on it, if it's mashed potatoes or French fries or a baked potato, and if there's a steak versus a piece of chicken, I can guesstimate the macro ranges as well as the calories that are in that plate of food. I also have extensively experimented around with fasting, and I know how my energy levels are affected depending on what foods I ate the day prior, or how much calories I've gotten into my body and how I'm gonna feel the day after that. I know that I can reduce my total caloric intake by about 800 calories on my rest days. And I know that if I'm gonna have a huge cheat day, that the next day after that, I'm gonna do some very heavy, body challenging and stressing movements and exercises at the gym. And I know how that will affect me compared to being in a caloric deficit the day before. The most important thing here is building skills and building knowledge. These are your tools to build your house. Adding as many tools into your arsenal is going to help you to be able to manipulate your life depending on what situations come your way. And then this is going to make you a more tactful and productive person no matter what endeavors you involve yourself in this world. If this is something you want, if you want to accomplish your goals, then you have to experiment around with it for yourself. Test it out on your own body. Experiment, learn, build skills, and build knowledge. Ostinato rigore, world. Good luck on your journey. I am the Hungarian Experiment.